Greetings, fellow tarot travelers. Tripping through the tetrahedral triptych of cards I shall now lay before you. I'm Tarot Torch. And at this point in time, I'd like to state that I made a previous video called Hypersonics, and I recommend that you view that video first. It's not necessary before seeing this video, but it certainly will explain an awful lot. This show, entitled Hypersonics 2, I'll be using one of the decks I used before, and that is called Born in the USSR by Alexander Danilov. And this deck has pictographs like this one of old Soviet propaganda posters that were posted in Moscow and throughout Russia during its communist years. The other deck I'm going to be using is called La Corte dei Tarocchi di Anna Maria Onofrio. And this is an El Maneghello deck. And the reason why I'm using this deck, not because of its strange shape, although that is part of it, it's long and narrow as you can see, and I think it might fit in the table better in the spread, but it's because this is a deck of the Orthodox Christian culture. And it's not specifically Russian Orthodox. It could be Russian Orthodox, it could be Serbian Orthodox, it could be Greek Orthodox, it could be any of the Orthodox churches. It's just a generic Byzantine Orthodox deck. And I wanted to bring that in because we need something that speaks of the Russian culture in terms of its conscience, not just the USSR propaganda cards, which in some cases point to the unconscionable. In the video I posted previously entitled Hypersonics, the Sun card came up for Russia. In retrospect, I must add one more interpretation to this card for that reading. I knew this interpretation the day of the original Hypersonics video, but I did not want to cause panic, so I did not present it to the public. Because of the Sun's placement in that reading, indeed, Russia may win the Hypersonics race. This will put Russia in a place of preeminence militarily, globally. The hypersonic missile technology, coupled with the new Russian nesting doll satellite systems that have multiple military applications, could lead Russia to dominate both Earth and sky. I have placed the same Sun card on the table as a significator of today's reading to gain insight into this prospect of Russian military domination. This satellite system is a satellite within a satellite within a satellite, like the Russian nesting dolls sold in Moscow. Each satellite is slightly smaller than the previous one and could take out another nation's hypersonic missile systems, communication systems, military spy satellites, and multiple other targets. Miniature satellites could easily operate freely in outer space undetected, intercepting military computer communications and operating systems of nuclear missile technologies. The Russian hypersonic system can release nuclear payloads from Moscow to the US in minutes, traveling at hypersonic speeds. For more information on the hypersonic technology, I really suggest watching that video I previously published, found on my channel entitled Hypersonics, where I go over that tech information. Also, Russia has been working on reflectorizing satellites that reflect the sun's light back to Earth. As I also discussed in the previously posted Hypersonics video, this tech could easily be amplified into laser military weaponry and could hit targets in space or on Earth. Moscow has just now pulled out of the INF Missile Defense Treaty with the US, as had Trump previously, allowing endless arms development in this area of research and development. We are now entering a new chapter of a new Cold War that can easily go hot in Crimea, Syria, Yemen, Iran, Ukraine, or Venezuela, to name but a few current conflict zones now active between the US and Russia. Will Russia indeed win the arms race? If so, will it be a short-lived victory? Will this Cold War lead us into another world war? Will this arms race be a boondoggle wasting money that could have been used for healthcare, education, and infrastructure repair? Will America or Russia be nuked in the event of a proxy war gone out of control? Is Russia trying and vying for global dominance? Well, these are some very big questions, and when we don't have the answer to big questions, it's time to ask the cards. They may or may not have the answer, but they most certainly will have something to say. So here's the card of victory that we had in the last tarot reading, and it's very concerning. By the way, this deck is very, very difficult to shuffle, so don't expect me to shuffle them a lot because of their size and shape. And it's very concerning that the Sun card came up, because if a Russian victory happens, it will change the balance of military power globally and for a very long time. Now, even if America does somehow defeat that aspect of military technology, Russia's sure to create another one. Once a person's in charge, they have control over vast resources. It's not easily reversed. So I think we'll place the Sun card more or less towards the top and see what these cards portend around it as to what this possible victory of Russia can mean. And we have the Four of Swords, and we have the Eight of Coins, and we have the Pope. Now, this is a very interesting configuration. The Four of Swords is about a truce, and it's about a pullout, and it's about having a treaty of some sort. And it's about establishing peace where there once was war, or where the potentiality of war stood. The Eight of Coins is about having a machine producing the exact same objects. Mass production, uniformity, design that's meant to last and to be mass produced 10,000 times over. And the Pope, well, you know, in these political readings, the Pope has a different meaning than simply a religious leader. In this reading, in political reading, he represents government structure and the authority and legitimacy of all governments. And it represents the laws of the land. And so, if there is a Russian victory of hypersonics, now that Russia's pulled out of the INF Treaty, what we're going to see, first of all, or what we are going to experience in the present tense, is mass production of arms. Probably both in Russia and America, but the cards are speaking only about Russia. And if America fails to keep up with this mass production that's going to happen in Russia, domination by Russia is assured. The treaty that we had, the INF Treaty, this is in the past. This is the card of the past, the present, and the future. And so in the past, we did have a treaty. We did have the ability to limit arms in the arms race. But now manufacturing is on, and Russian dominance is the goal for Russia. But the outcome of all of this, the outcome of everything, is the Pope. And this is a very interesting card. It can represent propaganda on one level. So it can mean that if the Russians win the arms race, they will now bring forward their new form of Russian propaganda, not unlike the propaganda of the Soviet Union, but their new propaganda, which is domination of all Christian culture by the Russian Orthodox Church. You know, this is something Vladimir Putin would support. A totalitarian police state that's not communist, but that's Orthodox Russian, and that everybody has to go to church, and everybody has to be chipped, and everybody has to be watched with facial recognition, that they are earnest when they sing in the Russian Orthodox Church. And this also speaks of the ability for Russia to control and be the shepherd of the other countries. And although it may want this role and may portend to it should it win the arms race, it doesn't mean that Russia will be any good at it. Let's see what the other cards say about this outcome. We have the King of Swords, which means rule by force. And we have the Papesse, which is the beliefs of the people, the creed of the nation, the ability to feel that God is on your side. And so with these two cards, one below and one above, certainly I would prefer to see these two inversed because it would portend more of peace. But what we're talking about is, as I thought, that if Russia wins this arm race with mass production of these hypersonic missile systems and with its nesting satellites and solar satellite and laser technology and wins the arms race, although the Pope is looking down at the Papesse and Putin thinks he's doing a good thing in forcing Russian orthodoxy on the world and that everybody will believe as he does, it is actually under threat of death that all this occurs. And it may not be the Soviet Union, folks. It may be through Russian orthodoxy, but to be honest, it's going to be even worse than the Soviet Union in some ways. The King of Swords is the most intellectual and yet spiritually and emotionally vacant card. It is the card that will kill millions and not have a sleepless night about it. And so, friends, I would say that America needs to wake up to the threat that it has created in its own backyard. We are letting Russia win an arms race, and that is not acceptable. And the cards are clear from the previous reading where the sun, in the previous hypersonics reading, where the sun showed that Russia will or may be the winner of the hypersonics arms race. Now, this doesn't mean Russia wins the world or wins all levels of all arms races. But I think the cards are clear what Russia will do with the power it could garner.